I never thought much about the persistent itch on my lower legs until that cool autumn morning in Boston. The sensation had been my unwelcome companion for months, keeping me awake during the quiet hours of night, causing me to scratch until my skin reddened. At 65, I had dismissed it as just another inconvenience of aging, something to be endured rather than investigated. You probably know that feeling, when your body tries to tell you something, but the message gets lost in the daily noise of life. We ignore these whispers, these gentle nudges that something isn't quite right, because acknowledging them means facing what we fear most: vulnerability. Dr. Reynolds sat across from me, her experienced eyes observing as I unconsciously scratched my shin during our consultation. "How long has that been going on, Thomas?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of concern that made me pause and truly consider the question for the first time. That moment changed everything, the beginning of my journey to decode what my body had been trying to tell me for months. Little did I know that this simple itch would lead me to discoveries that would not only extend my life, but transform how I lived each day. I left the doctor's office with a referral to a vascular specialist and a growing knot in my stomach. The words, peripheral artery disease, hung in the air like an unwelcome guest, forcing me to confront the possibility that my body was beginning to fail in ways I hadn't anticipated. You might wonder why we resist these investigations into our own well-being. Is it fear of what we might discover, or the comfortable denial that allows us to continue our lives unchanged? Eleanor, my wife of 40 years, noticed my unusual quietness when I returned home to our Cambridge apartment. She had been urging me to see someone about the itching for months, her concerns mounting as she watched me suffer through sleepless nights and distracted days. The following week was filled with tests: ultrasounds, blood pressure measurements in my legs and arms, questions about my lifestyle and family history, all pointing toward a truth I had been avoiding. My circulation was compromised, and the itching was my body's desperate attempt to get my attention. I began to research everything I could about circulation problems, discovering that our bodies often communicate through subtle signs long before major symptoms appear. My persistent leg itching was not merely an annoyance, but a sophisticated alarm system trying to prevent a catastrophe. You've felt it too, haven't you? That nagging sensation that something isn't quite right, a pain that lingers too long, a change in energy levels, or perhaps an unexplained discomfort that you rationalize away. Sarah, a 72-year-old woman in my support group, shared how she had ignored the itching on her upper back for years, attributing it to dry skin. When her left arm began to tingle and go numb, she finally sought help and discovered she had notalgia paresthetica, nerve damage related to spinal degeneration. What struck me most about Sarah's story was not the diagnosis, but the lost time. Years spent suffering unnecessarily. Years when preventative measures could have been taken to slow the progression of her condition and improve her quality of life. The vascular specialist was direct but kind as he explained my condition. My arteries had narrowed significantly, restricting blood flow to my legs and increasing my risk of heart attack and stroke. The itching, that persistent, maddening sensation, was my body's way of saying that cells weren't getting enough oxygen. You might be experiencing your own wake-up call right now, some small discomfort that you've been pushing aside, telling yourself it's nothing to worry about. But what if it's not nothing? What if it's everything? Jack, my neighbor in downtown Boston, had ignored the itching on his palms for months. At 68, he had attributed it to excessive hand-washing during flu season until his skin turned yellowish and the itching became unbearable. His diagnosis? Early-stage liver disease that could have progressed to cirrhosis had he continued to ignore the signs. I realized then that my body wasn't betraying me. It was protecting me, sending signals that something needed attention before it was too late. The question was whether I would listen and take action. If you've been enjoying this story and finding value in these insights, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these potentially life-saving stories with others who might be ignoring their body's whispers right now. The medication prescribed by my doctor helped improve my circulation, but the real change came from within. I began to walk every morning along the Charles River, regardless of the New England weather. watching as the Boston skyline emerged from the morning mist. You have the power to rewrite your story at any moment, to transform from a passive recipient of health problems into an active guardian of your own well-being. I discovered this power at 65, but you can claim it today. My friend Michael had experienced persistent itching on his scalp for years, trying every shampoo on the market without relief. At a routine checkup, his doctor ordered blood work that revealed elevated blood sugar levels, prediabetes that had been manifesting as an itchy scalp due to inflammation throughout his body. Like Michael, I learned that these subtle symptoms connect to larger systems within the body: circulatory, nervous, endocrine, all communicating through a complex language of sensations that we must learn to interpret and respect if we hope to age with dignity and health. What frightened me most was how silent these conditions can be until they reach critical stages. My peripheral artery disease hadn't caused me pain or obvious disability, just that persistent itching that I could have easily continued to ignore had Dr. Reynolds not noticed my unconscious scratching. You might be sitting there now, aware of a symptom you've been dismissing, perhaps an itch on your soles at night, a tingling in your hands, or a patch of dry skin that never seems to heal no matter what creams you apply. Dorothy, a retired teacher from Chicago, shared during a health seminar how the itching on the soles of her feet had been her body's way of alerting her to developing neuropathy. At 74, she had attributed it to dry winter air until her doctor connected it to her borderline diabetes diagnosis. The danger of these conditions lies not just in their progression, but in the cascade effect they can have, one system affecting another, creating a domino effect of health complications that become increasingly difficult to manage as we age. I began to keep a journal, documenting every sensation and change in my body, creating a map of messages that I could share with my healthcare providers. This simple act transformed my relationship with my physical self, turning me into an informed translator of my body's communications. You can develop this same awareness, this mindful attention to the signals your body sends. It doesn't require medical training, just a willingness to notice, record, and investigate, rather than dismiss or endure. Karen, a 68-year-old artist from Toronto, created a visual diary of her symptoms, a series of paintings that tracked the location and intensity of the mysterious itching on her upper back. When she shared these with her neurologist, they provided crucial information that led to a diagnosis of early spinal stenosis. By learning to speak our body's language fluently, we become active participants in our health care, rather than passive recipients of treatments after conditions have progressed to critical stages. This partnership with our bodies and our healthcare providers can make all the difference. As I implemented the changes recommended by my doctors, daily walking, a Mediterranean diet rich in anti-inflammatory foods, proper hydration, and stress management techniques, I noticed improvements beyond my circulation. My sleep improved, my energy increased, and my mood stabilized. You might be surprised by how interconnected your body's systems are, how addressing one area of concern can create positive ripples throughout your entire being. This holistic perspective is essential as we navigate the complexities of aging. Robert, a 70-year-old former banker from Vancouver, discovered that treating the circulation issues causing itching in his lower legs also improved his cognitive function. The increased blood flow benefited not just his extremities but his brain as well, enhancing his memory and mental clarity. The lessons I learned from that initial itch extended far beyond managing my peripheral artery disease. They taught me to view my body as an integrated system where each part affects the whole, a perspective that would serve me well in the challenges that lay ahead. My support group became a source of wisdom as we shared our stories of ignored symptoms and delayed diagnoses. Each person had a unique experience, yet our narratives shared a common thread: the tendency to dismiss subtle signals until they demand attention through pain or dysfunction. You probably have your own stories of overlooked warnings, times when your body tried to communicate something important that you weren't ready to hear. These experiences, though difficult, can become our greatest teachers if we allow them to be. Margaret, at 76, laughed as she described how the persistent itching on her palms had led her to a liver specialist in downtown Los Angeles. "I thought I was allergic to my new dish soap," she admitted. But my body was trying to tell me about bile duct obstruction that could have become serious had I not accidentally mentioned it to my doctor. These unexpected teachers, our symptoms, our fellow patients, our healthcare providers, form a network of guidance that can lead us toward greater health and longevity if we approach them with humility and openness rather than fear or denial. As I continued my health journey, I became aware of how emotional and mental factors influenced my physical symptoms. Stress exacerbated the itching in my legs, while periods of calm and contentment seemed to reduce both the frequency and intensity of the sensation. You've likely noticed this mind-body connection in your own life, how anxiety can trigger physical symptoms, or how emotional well-being can enhance your resilience against illness and discomfort. This connection is not imaginary, but deeply rooted in our physiology. Dr. Patel, a neurologist at Massachusetts General Hospital, explained to his patient James how chronic stress had contributed to the persistent itching on his upper back. The tension he carried from caring for his wife with dementia had manifested physically, creating a feedback loop of discomfort and anxiety. I began incorporating meditation into my daily routine, sitting quietly by the window of my Beacon Hill apartment each morning, watching the sun rise over Boston Harbor while focusing on my breath. This simple practice became as important to my healing as any medication or physical therapy. 18 months after my diagnosis, I realized that what had begun as a frightening health challenge had transformed into an unexpected gift, an opportunity to rebuild my relationship with my body and develop deeper awareness of its needs and messages. You might find it difficult to view health challenges as gifts, especially when they bring discomfort or uncertainty. Yet these experiences often force us to prioritize what truly matters and to invest in the quality of our remaining years. Olivia, a 67-year-old professor from Seattle, described the itching on her scalp as the alarm clock I didn't know I needed. The symptom led to a diagnosis of blood sugar imbalance, which prompted lifestyle changes that gave her more energy and vitality than she had experienced in decades. The persistent itch that had once kept me awake at night had become a teacher, guiding me toward a more conscious way of living and aging, one where I no longer ignored the whispers of my body but listened with respect and responded with appropriate action. Now at 67, I've come to see aging not as a decline, but as a ripening, a process of accumulating wisdom through experiences that younger people might view as setbacks or inconveniences. My body's messages have become valuable data rather than nuisances to be suppressed. You stand at a crossroads right now, with the opportunity to choose how you'll relate to your body's communications. Will you silence them with temporary remedies, or will you listen deeply enough to understand what they're truly telling you? Anthony, a 74-year-old retired firefighter from New York, shared how the persistent itching on the soles of his feet had initially angered him. "I was frustrated that my body was falling apart," he admitted, "until I realized it wasn't failing me. It was fighting for me, trying to get my attention before real damage was done." This perspective, viewing our symptoms as allies rather than enemies, represents a profound shift in consciousness that can transform how we experience the aging process. It allows us to work with our bodies rather than against them, creating a partnership that serves our longevity. 3 years after that first doctor's appointment, my itching has diminished significantly, not because I've suppressed the symptom, but because I've addressed its root cause through consistent lifestyle changes and appropriate medical intervention. The conversation with my body continues, but now I'm a more attentive listener. You deserve this same quality of relationship with your physical self, one based on respect, attention, and responsive care, rather than neglect or frustration. Building this relationship requires daily practice, but yields benefits that extend far beyond symptom management. Dr. Williams, a geriatrician in Denver, often tells her patients that the body whispers before it screams. She encourages them to document even minor persistent symptoms like Jennifer's itchy upper back, which ultimately revealed early spinal changes that could be addressed before causing nerve damage. I've learned to check in with my body regularly, asking what it needs and how I might better support its natural healing processes. This ongoing dialogue has become as routine as brushing my teeth, a non-negotiable part of my daily self-care that keeps the lines of communication open. What began as a simple itch has left me with a legacy of listening, a practice I now share with friends, family, and anyone willing to hear about the importance of heeding our body's subtle signals before they escalate into urgent demands. You have the opportunity to create your own legacy of listening, to demonstrate through your actions that self-care is not selfish but necessary. A gift you give not only to yourself, but to those who love you and depend on your presence in their lives. Emma, at 69, now leads wellness workshops in Phoenix, teaching others about the body's early warning systems. The persistent palm itching that led to her liver diagnosis became the foundation for a second career, helping others interpret their own physical whispers. As I walk along the shore of Cape Cod, watching the Atlantic waves crash against the sand, I feel profound gratitude for that maddening itch that wouldn't let me rest until I paid attention. It wasn't just a symptom, it was a messenger, perhaps even a lifesaver, that arrived at exactly the right time. Before we end this journey together, if you found value in these insights and stories, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from learning to listen to their body's whispers. Together, we can create a community of mindful listeners who age with awareness, dignity, and health.